Hi everybody, Joe here again and welcome back. So in the last video of this aquarium stand build, you seen me build the frame for the aquarium stand. Now in that video I mentioned that we would be moving on to wrapping the stand in the next video. But I asked you guys on my Facebook fan page what you guys would like to see next and how I should actually do it. My initial thoughts were to build the aquarium stand frame, then wrap it and finish it, and then move on to the aquarium canopy frame. And in the next video after that, wrap it and finish it as well. You guys thought it would be a better idea to move immediately into the canopy frame. And then in the third video, wrap them both at the same time and finish them both. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. A lot of you guys are asking, when's your next video going to be out? What's your next video going to be about? And similar questions to that. I get those quite often. If you really want to, and if you want to stay in touch with what I have coming out or what I have planned, like my Facebook page. I update it all the time with things that I'm thinking about doing or that I'm currently doing, or when a video is coming out or what's coming up next. Anyway, let's get started with the build and start off by talking about the supplies we're going to need. Okay, so some of the supplies we're going to need are really simple for this build. We're going to need some carpenter's wood glue, which is pretty straightforward and simple. I use whatever's most commonly available. You're not going to need a whole lot. Obviously this is well used. Only about a quarter of it left. You're also going to need a drill of some sort, basically allowing you to pre-drill your holes in the canopy frame to allow you to screw the screws into it. We'll go into why you need to do that later. You're going to need an electric screwdriver or a wireless screwdriver of some sort. I'm sorry, a cordless screwdriver of some sort, and you're going to need the bits for it. You're also going to need some wood screws. I went ahead and got number 6 wood screws. The number indicates how thick the screw is. Number 6 is a pretty thick screw. You could probably use the next one under it, but don't go any thicker than that or you're going to look at splitting your wood. I also got 1.5 inch long. Now, the reason I got this size is quite simple. There's about 70 in there as well. That's more than what I'm going to need. Now, the reason I got this size and screw is quite simple. You guys will remember that I mentioned I'm going to be using 2x1s. Now, 2x1s aren't really 2x1s. They're really closer to 3/4 of an inch by 1.5 inch. Same idea as the 2x4s that aren't really 2x4s. Now here's why I use this thickness. Or I'm sorry, got these screws. You'll notice that if this was a true 1.5 inch screw, or I'm sorry, a true 1 inch wide, I'd only be able to get the screw 1/2 inch into the next piece. But since it's really only 3/4 of an inch, I can get it all the way through this wood and half into the next wood. So it works out perfectly that way. So that's essentially the hardware and glue that I'm going to need. As for the wood, I picked up 10 2x1s. The 10 2x1s cost me about $1.50 a piece, so I was looking at about 15 bucks. Still pretty cheap. I got them in 4-foot lengths, which is perfect because the tank's only 4 feet long. Not a lot of cutting to do. Really, I only needed to do 10 cuts. Again, we're using the same saw to cut this up as we did the 2x4s in the previous video. The glue, I had it kicking around, but you can usually pick it up for about 5 bucks. The screws run around 5 bucks as well. So in total here, we're looking at about $25 to build the frame to the canopy. Still a pretty good price, and that's all I'm going to need. So now let's get into actually putting this together and how to do it. Okay, so to start out, we're going to start with the bottom frame of the canopy. Now, what we're going to need to do is really similar to how we built the stand. We're going to need 2 long pieces, which are the length of the entire aquarium. Now, with the stand, I mentioned going a little bit bigger than the actual dimensions of the aquarium, but with a canopy, you want the exact dimensions. Now this tank is 4 feet long, 3 feet wide. So in my case, I'm going to go ahead and have 2 long pieces that are the exact length of the entire aquarium, and then 2 pieces on the inside that will be the width. Now keep in mind, when you use this piece here, that you are only cutting it and taking into account the width, the width of these longer pieces. Now this is 3/4 of an inch wide, and so is the one on the other side. So I have to take into an account that I'm losing 1.5 inches on the ends. So this piece here can't be 36 inches or it's going to be too long. So it's only 34.5 inches long. So make sure you consider that when you're cutting it up. That piece is going to go on the other end, obviously. Now, next step to this is very, very simple. We're going to run some glue on the edge and drill 2 screws into the ends. Secure it in place. Now, when I mentioned pre-drilling, these holes are actually already pre-drilled. We'll have a closer look here. Just 2 small pre-drilled holes. These are where my screws are going to go. The reason why we pre-drill these is really simple. With this kind of wood, since it's not a really thick wood and it's a dried wood, you risk splitting the wood. And you don't really want to do that. So pre-drilling the holes takes the pressure off the wood and allows the screw to go straight through it and into the other piece. What I'm going to do is make 2 of these. One for the bottom, and for the top. So like I said, I'm going to glue and then screw on all ends. I'm going to do that right now. So, a little bit of glue. We're not looking to do a crazy amount. Again, this is empty stuff. Just a little line. Don't have to get crazy. Good thing about wood glue is it comes off with a wet wipe, so you can just wipe it off. Now the reason why we're gluing this is a really simple reason. This isn't a really strong wood to begin with, and the screws are, while they will hold it together, just to make sure there's no creaking or, basically holds it a little tighter. There goes one screw. Take our screw, go into our pre-drilled hole, and repeat it for the bottom. That's about it. Okay, so I built the 2 bottom, the bottom as well as the top frames. These are basically the same as how we did the stand, keep in mind. Now, you'll also remember how we determined how high our stand would have been. We're going to use the same principle for how high or how tall the canopy will be. Some things you're going to want to consider is what type of lighting you're going to have, how much room do you really need under there in order to get into the tank and clean it and do your maintenance, and what type of filtration you're looking to keep. Now, if you're keeping a hang on the back filter, obviously the back frames aren't really going to work in your favor. So there's options around that. You can basically cut out a notch for your filter and it's going to be fine. The reason being is because when we go to wrap this and wrap it in plywood, you can cut out a notch in the plywood for your filter to hang out as well. Now, it's not going to be flimsy because you need to screw that plywood onto the frame, and that's going to strengthen the entire structure immensely. Now, let's determine how high I'm going to need it. I'm going to be using LED lighting, so the further away from the tank LED lights are, I find the better they look. With LED lights, they tend to have a tendency to create spotlights in the tank, and if the further away you go, the wider that spotlight will be. So it's not going to be as noticeable. Another thing that's positive about it, that I'm looking to do is make sure that I get some shimmering. I also have a really deep tank, so I'm going to kind of need a taller canopy so I can actually get in there. It might not look good because I'm using a short aquarium, so I don't need to have I don't want to have necessarily too big of a canopy, but in this case I almost have no choice. So I'm going to be making my aquarium canopy about 11 inches tall. I do this with 4 of these pieces of wood. They're also pre-drilled. So there's basically one for each corner, and like I mentioned a minute ago, it's just like how we did the stand. So for each one, it goes on the inside. We're screwing just right into it. You can screw into it on this side as well, but it's not really needed. And then obviously the top goes in there, and it stays level with both sides. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and get these all in place, and we'll move on to the next step. Before we do that, there's a topic I wanted to cover before we move forward that I forgot to mention earlier. You might be wondering why we're making this exactly the same dimensions as your aquarium. Isn't the canopy supposed to hang over slightly and maybe cover your trim? Absolutely, and this is why we're making it exactly the same. Because when we come back and we wrap this frame, we're going to be looking at covering it in plywood. That's typically the most common material used. Now I have a scrap piece of plywood here to give you an idea of what I mean. So the plywood's basically just going to go right on top of it, and I can put it wherever I want, so I can cover my trim, or I don't have to. If I had the frame out too far, I'm going to have a huge gap underneath the entire perimeter of the canopy. So this will allow it to stay flush to the tank, and it will look really well. So consider that. Consider the height. It's very important. Anyways, I'm going to get this done, and we'll move on to the next step. So now it's starting to look like a canopy. We have the bottom frame done and the top frame done. We also put the risers in place. Everything's glued and screwed. Pretty strong structure as is. Now for most of you, it ends here. That's all you need to do for the frame. Move on to the next step. For me, I'm going to need to do a little bit more. Since my aquarium is so wide, I'm going to need some center support up here. Because when I go to put the plywood on top, it's going to sag because I'm attaching the lights to the top of it. So to prevent that, I'm going to put a couple more of these braces, just like the ones on the sides, right down the middle. There's going to be 2 of them. Now, you might be wondering why this design. It looks pretty simple. The reason why I chose to show you this, you guys, this design was based on the fact that it is simple. It's very easy to make, and anybody can do it. It takes maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes tops to cut it, glue it, and screw it. It's not a huge deal. There are more complicated canopies to make. There are more advanced canopies to make, but I don't really want to show you guys those for the first canopy video. We'll get into those eventually though. Anyways, I'm going to put the center supports on and we'll take a look at the finished product. Okay guys, that was it. I've done my part and finished the top bracing that I'm going to need done. As you can see, it's the 2 braces there. Pretty lightweight, not heavy at all. 20 pounds, maybe 15 pounds. So that was essentially it. We're done the frame to the canopy. We're going to go ahead and move on to wrapping both the stand and the canopy now. If you want to know when the next video will be up, or what my next videos are going to be like next, like I mentioned earlier, like my Facebook page. Links in the description of this video. I'd appreciate it if you would. Show me support. I love interacting with you guys, seeing what you guys are doing, seeing what you guys think. I always ask, I'm starting to ask more often what you guys think of an idea, or get some advice from you guys on what you guys would like to see. So I'd love for you guys to give me a like on Facebook and interact with me and give me some support there. I make these videos solely for you guys. So show me some love and I'll keep making these videos. If you guys want to take it a step further, go ahead and join me on my website, DIYfishkeepers.com. Of course, the DIY stands for do it yourself. So that's DIYfishkeepers.com. The link's in the description of the video. We got the forum on there. There's hundreds of people just like you and me, loving do-it-yourself builds, sharing ideas, showing each other's projects, helping each other out. I'd love to see some of you guys on there. I also have a lot of do-it-yourself calculators. There's 10 on there right now. Acrylic thickness calculator, sump volume calculator, everything that you're going to need's on there. Go ahead and check it out. We'll see you there. Anyways, guys, Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.